Well, good evening, everyone. This is Abe Layton. I'm chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, and we are pleased and honored to welcome all of you to our 75th live town hall. Hard to believe we've done that many town halls, but again, our goal is to be responsive and always listening to you all. This one is really special tonight because on our panel, we have members of our youth in Douglas County. And so we're really thankful that they're here. We have Cassie Abano from Mountain Vista High School, Preston Cantor from Rock Canyon High School, and Vidya Vaish from Chaparral High School, as well as Marsha Alston. We're going to be talking about nearly $1 million through the sale of the Broncos that, believe it or not, Douglas County is going to benefit from. And these youth and many others in our newly formed Youth Commission will help the Board of County Commissioners decide how to spend those resources. I also wanted to give a special shout out to a very remarkable guest who has a huge heart for youth, and that's Representative Randy Bradley. Thank you for being with us tonight. Commissioner Teal?
Hey, thanks so much, Commissioner Layden. Well, folks, we want this live town hall to be very interactive. We want our youth who are present to answer your questions, and you'll hear a lot from them tonight. If you're joining us on the phone, press *3 on your telephone pad to ask a question. For those online, please submit your question into the dialog box, and our moderator will read it out aloud. For those of you who are in the room with us, just raise your hand and we'll bring you the microphone so that everyone in the room, online and on the phone, can hear your questions. Commissioner Thomas, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. And thank you all for joining us tonight. So if you've been in Colorado a long time, you may remember that taxpayers helped fund a new stadium for the Denver Broncos back in the 1990s. When the Broncos were sold last year, the taxpayers had a stake in the sale, and the 7 counties in the Metropolitan Football Stadium District shared in the profit. Douglas County's share is $939,363.21. Those funds must be spent on youth activity programs. So when our board was approached about how to allocate this funding, we went straight to the experts. With us tonight are youth representatives from the Douglas County Youth Initiative and the Douglas County Youth Commission. We'll introduce them this evening after our moderator gives us more details on how you can participate in tonight's event. Roger?
All right, thank you, commissioners, and welcome to our youth tonight. Again, we want to get to your question tonight, so to ask a question from your phone, press *3 on your telephone keypad and you'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator notes your information, you'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until it's your turn. And then when it is your turn, I'll ask you to repeat that question aloud for our live audience. For those of you online, please enter your question into the dialog box on your screen and I will read it aloud when the time comes. And if you are here with us in the room, please remember we need to bring you a microphone so everyone can hear your question. Since we'd like to hear from as many folks as possible, we'll ask you to limit all speakers to only one question. So let's get started. Back to Commissioner Layden.
Thank you, Roger. And again, want to welcome our panel here tonight. Again, they're students from across Douglas County here to share their thinking and their recommendations for this funding. So I know we shared your names, but if each of you would briefly introduce yourself, your grade, your school, and then why you wanted to be part of the Youth Initiative or Youth Commission. And we'll start with Cassie. Cassie?
Right here.
Here you are, right to my left.
Hi, I'm Cassie Abano. I'm a senior at Mountain Vista High School, and I wanted to be part of the Douglas County Youth Commission because I believe that being a part of a student-led community is an essential part of being a leader. And you can't be a voice for students without working with other students and hearing about their opinions.
Wonderful. What about Preston?
I'm Preston, and I am a freshman at Rock Canyon. And I joined the Youth Commission because I wanted to work with youth-related issues in our community, and I wanted to grow as a leader.
Preston, thank you so much for that. We also have Annika here with us. Annika?
Hi, I'm Annika Lundmark. I am a freshman at Castleview High School, and I think part of a reason I wanted to be on the youth advisory youth advisory board is because kind of what Cassie said, it is about being an advocate for the youth in Douglas County and showing leadership and being able to give feedback for what is going on in our schools or just in youth in general here in Douglas County, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Annika, thanks so much. And then Vidya.
Hi, I'm Vidya Vash, and I am a sophomore at Legend High School. And I chose to be on the Douglas County Youth Commission because I believe that it's important to be a voice for students that are in our community. And I think it's important as a student to know what the county is doing with our funding. And I love working with adults to know how our funding is being used and working with other students from our community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm really honored to have had the opportunity to work with one of the most dedicated individuals in our community that has been really laboring on behalf of youth for much longer than I've been here. And I've only been here for about 5 years, but it's Marsha Alston, Douglas County's Youth Programs Supervisor. Thank you, Marsha, for all of your work with our young people.
Thank you so much. Again, Marsha Alston with the Douglas County Youth Initiative, and I do have the honor of being part of the youth voice here in Douglas County. So it has been such an exciting process to start. This is our first ever Douglas County Youth Commission. So these are some of our we have roughly about 16 youth commissioners, and these are 4 who wanted to be with us this evening and have given up a Wednesday night to be with us. So we're so happy about that. I think that we want to go over the process that has occurred for the stadium grant program. And what we did was we started out and we sent out numerous RFPs. We sent out via email to a majority of the nonprofits and youth serving organizations in Douglas County, asking them to reply to this request. We received 45 grant proposals, and and that was our first call for our proposals.
Marsha, thank you for that. And I just want to remind our listening audience to ask a question from the phone. Press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be transferred to an operator. Commissioner Teal, we have some questions.
Why, thank you, Commissioner. I almost feel like I have to say, hi, I'm George Teal, and I'm a graduate of Greeley Central High School.
Woo-hoo.
Looks like we have some questions. Roger, do we have an online question for the panelists?
We do have a couple, but I'm going to reiterate what Commissioner Layton just said. Press *3. We don't have any phone questions. We want to hear from folks. So press *3 will get you in the queue. Here's our first question from Beth. She asked, where did this funding come from?
Who would like to take that, Marsha or Commissioner Thomas?
I'd be happy to take that. When the tax was put in place in the 1990s to fund the new football stadium by the 7 surrounding counties, there was language put in there that if the Broncos team was ever sold, that there would be a portion of the profits that would be given back to each of the 7 counties and the municipalities involved in the taxing process for youth. And so we didn't know this was going to happen. We were surprised when our representative, Tim White, on the Metropolitan Stadium Board called me. I ran into him at an event, actually, and he said, hey, you guys are getting almost $1 million in Douglas County. And he told me that Parker would get about $600,000 and that Lone Tree was going to get about $1 million. And so Douglas County decided we would reach out to our youth on how to spend these dollars. Parker put it into a park, and Lone Tree put theirs directly into a park. But we went to our youth and asked them, what do you think? So that's where the money came from. Thank you for asking.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for filling us in on that one. Just a reminder, if you're joining us on the phone, please press *3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. We've got the lines open. Looks like our next question comes from Andrea. What are the parameters for spending this new funding? And again, Commissioner Thomas, I wonder if I recall properly, the biggest, it was youth activities. And that wasn't very well defined, but Commissioner, you did a lot of work to kind of help us out and guide us. Would you like to share that with everyone tonight?
Thank you for that, Commissioner Teal. It was directly, the money, according to the statute, needed to go to youth program activities. And it was up to us to define what that meant. But we put out a call for grants, and I was very interested in the number of grants requests we got. There were some for cars, there were some for trailers, there were some for shelving at a nonprofit that provides food for kids over the weekends. There were activity requests for a symphony. There were some for horse therapy. There were some for a place where kids could get together and just talk. I was really impressed with one of them that talked about educating middle school youth about the dangers of marijuana. And I think why that appealed to me so much is that when I was the coroner, we had a death of a young man who took his life. And his father told me the story about how his son was in AP classes, was the captain of the football team, had a wonderful girlfriend, and he started getting into marijuana. And within 6 months, he was so depressed and hooked on marijuana that he wasn't on the football team anymore. He was getting all F's, and his girlfriend left him. And then finally, he took his life. And that's why that one, and when I met with the Youth Commission and explained that story to them, I really thought that that met the criteria of youth program activity because it explained to youth the dangers of marijuana. And I really think the purpose of this funding is to have a legacy effect for kids in our community. And so I'm interested in the youth telling us how they went through the applications and the things that they decided. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Commissioner. I mean, I remember when it was first put before us, it was very open-ended, and we had some ideas, but yeah, we did decide to do that call for grants, and we got the ideas in, programs that could use this money, and then, of course, we turned it over to the Youth Commission, and we're going to hear a whole lot more about that in a moment. But I'd like to turn back to Roger. Roger, do we have a phone question for the panel?
We sure do. Kelly, press *3, and you can do that also to get in line. Kelly, go ahead. You're live. If I can get you going, go ahead. Sorry, Kelly, we're having some technical difficulties. There we go. All right, Kelly, you're live. Go ahead.
Okay, well, finally. You said Parker's getting money, Lone Tree's getting about $1 million or over $1 million. What about the rest of the communities in Douglas County? You have Roxborough, you have Highlands Ranch, you have other communities. Are they not getting anything?
No,
Or is
that's
this only for certain counties or certain cities?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kelly, because, and actually, we always need to remember, Castle Rock had, my own community of Castle Rock, had opted out of the stadium district when it was first introduced. So that's a really great question, and it's one that we actually turned to our Youth Commission to help us address. Who among you guys would like to talk about the other communities that were on the grants presented to you guys? Would one of our youth like to take that? Just jump right in, guys. Or Marcia. Yeah, go
If I
ahead.
may.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, that was a part of the conversation. So it was my understanding that the money that Douglas County got would be spent for the entirety of the county. So Parker received funds and Lone Tree received funds. As Commissioner Till said, Castle Rock did not. However, these dollars were for not just unincorporated Douglas County, but for the entirety of the county. And honestly, I'm not sure if we pose that to the youth per se. We did mention to the youth that Parker received some funding and that Lone Tree received some funding, but the grants that the youth reviewed, which were about, like I said, those 45 grants, those proposals covered the entirety of Douglas County. So you guys, you looked at grants from, say, Lone Tree, and you looked at many that are based in Highlands Ranch. They're nodding. we didn't look, I think, at the geography per se, because we were looking at the entirety of Douglas County.
So Cassie, now you're right next to me, and I see your extensive notes that you took during the process. How can you help answer Kelly's question about how you guys considered the funding for areas outside of Lone Tree Parker?
So there is specifically a request from something called the Friendship Circle, which is one focused on mental health. And I believe that was from Arapahoe County, so it was outside of our county. And when we were looking at that particular grant, we noticed that there were grants from other mental health programs that were within our county. So we wanted to prioritize those that were based in our county before looking at other locations.
All right, cool. Preston, Vidya, you guys, how did you consider that in terms of making sure money was allocated around the rest of Douglas County? Did that come into your considerations, guys?
So we ranked our priorities, and our top 3 priorities were mental health, education, and prevention and mentoring.
Okay, so that kind of suggests you were focused on the programs, and geography was sort of secondary. Vidya, is that what you were thinking going through the process? Abe, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, we also looked at like how much money different organizations were asking for, and we also looked at organization credibility. So if they could raise the money themselves, or how much of a percentage of our funding would it take if we gave the grant money to a specific organization. So we took multiple factors into consideration along with the priorities that we had. So yeah.
Awesome. Commissioner Thomas, I think you got some more questions for the panel.
Well, let me ask, did all the youth answer the question about what their priority was?
I think we might have missed one.
Hi again. So another thing so like Preston said, how one of our top priorities was mental health. We came up, all 16 of us came up with that as a group, that these were our priorities, and that was how we would kind of pick and choose which grants we did want to invest in. And so I think another thing, like Cassie said, was we did want to prioritize what was in our county first. And then if we did like a grant from another county, we would look more into accepting their grant.
Well, the one that I think is being talked about was definitely from Arapahoe, but they wanted to go into Douglas. So I believe that's the Friendship one. They already had a program in Arapahoe. They wanted to come into Douglas. And so all of the grants were vetted prior. All 45 were definitely serving the youth of Douglas County. And I want to say the majority of them were actually housed in Douglas County. So that was definitely one of our priorities. That even before that reached the kids, that was something that had already been vetted. But they did come up with their priorities. And interestingly enough, when they were all talking, we saw trends. We started to see many of the youth were saying some of the same things, and they had done their rankings by themselves. So it wasn't like a group talk. And then they all said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. They all started kind of having these similar threads, which I found to be very interesting.
Marcia, thank you for that. And, really great questions so far. I know a lot of folks are from areas in the county that are unincorporated, places like Roxborough, Northwest Douglas County, Sterling Ranch, Highlands Ranch. Just want to remind our audience that those are unincorporated portions of our county that do not have local representation other than the county. We are the government for those areas, but also have this county-wide focus even around our incorporated areas. But, we have a lot of respect for our colleagues that have said, hey, parks are where some of this money should go. But as the chairman of the Douglas County Youth Initiative, one thing I've seen over the last several years, particularly in our youth Congress, which Marcia leads so well with literally hundreds of high schoolers every year that come to the Capitol, is that the voices of the youth are valuable. And in Douglas County, nobody knows what it's like to be a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, or 18-year-old in 2023 better than these students. So we really like to hear from you all. Roger, I do know that you're saying that there's a question on the phone. Do we have a phone question?
We do. I think it's a follow-up question from Kelly, so I'm going to bring him
Kelly's
back.
back.
Here we go.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to go back and put myself into the queue again because you guys cut me off. I couldn't ask any follow-up questions. And that's typical of a politician because they want to control everything. But anyway, this is my question. Why? I've been in the Highlands Ranch since '93. So I went through this whole thing with stuff. I want to know why Highlands Ranch isn't getting their fair share of the money to give to our youth and our projects. And two, I am concerned that there are other places that are getting money that opted out and didn't pay a dime.
Hey, so Kelly, I am so glad you called back. We always say we work for the citizens, not the other way around. So I'm glad you called. I'll tell you, in 75 live town halls, we've never had a citizen get 2 shots at the apple. So you got 2 bites, which is more than most. And I hope you had heard my earlier comments around unincorporated Douglas County. Highlands Ranch is a part of that. So this $1 million really is representative of that area, and that's part of the discussion tonight. Roger, any additional questions? Oh, we got looks like an online question.
All right, this one came in from Matt. Why did youth choose mental health as their top priority? We've kind of touched on that, but maybe spend a little more time on that.
That is a great question for our youth. Which member of our panel would like to? Yes, Vidya.
All right, I think that we selected mental health as our top priority because I think it's a very prevalent subject in today's society. We see drug rates are much higher than ever before, and suicide rates are a lot higher. And I think mental health is if we can improve the mental health of our community, it would be a great way to make the community more safe and more healthy and just keep a growth mindset all around the community. And I think it's really, really important for the growth of just the youth.
I'm going to add a comment there. We heard from our coroner a really important statistic. We have always been told that we need to focus on suicidality among youth. And as of this last year, the age range that is facing the most suicidality is actually 60 to 69, which has changed a little bit. Laura's shaking her head. That's what I heard. Age 60 to 69.
So Rayanne Coroner Brown did tell us that recently they have seen an uptick in more suicide deaths in 60 to 69 than 20 to 29. But after that meeting, I had staff pull the suicide numbers.
Oh,
and
Laura has fresh information.
It is, yeah. Maybe there'd been a few older suicides lately, but the trend still continues that the group most at risk for suicide are white males between the age of 45 and 64. And that the numbers of suicide for youth and all groups do fluctuate up and down, but there's not a big trend. What Rayanne was talking about was just a short clip in time. It is not the overall trend of what's been going on.
And Commissioner Thomas, thank you for that. The good news, though, is that you all are doing such a great job as young people with peer support and connecting with those that are in challenging circumstances and doing things like this tonight that I think you're really helping with mental health among your peers. But I want to turn it over to you all to answer that question. Why mental health?
So obviously, as students, we're the best voice for speaking to why mental health is so important to youth. And particularly me as a senior, obviously they can speak to issues of mental health within schools. But having been through most of my high school career, I'm an oldie now, a veteran, I would say, but
So old. Oh my goodness.
um, but throughout high school, students grow obviously, and we develop. So does our mindset, and that mindset begins to change significantly as we're in our formative years and going through this. We're very much affected by those around us and the sort of culture that's in schools. Right now, something that's very prevalent that I've been looking at in Mountain Vista High School in particular is comparison culture. Students are always comparing themselves to other students and their peers, and that really affects their ability to think positively. It's always something that's perpetuated in schools because students are always thinking alike in that way. There's a herd mentality when students are comparing themselves to one another. And because of that herd mentality, it's something that's difficult to mitigate and get rid of. It's so ingrained that even as a senior, I still share the same beliefs as a freshman with like how much value we place on ourselves based on our grades. So academics are a factor in our mental health. Socialization is a factor in our mental health. There are so many factors that impact us that mental health becomes so complex. We don't know where to start with, fixing it. So that's why we chose it as our priority.
Great answer. And I'm wondering, is it people that are teens comparing themselves to other teens or comparing themselves to doctored Instagram photos of vacations? I don't know. I think all people struggle with that. Who else from the teen panel would like to answer that? Anything else on mental health or why you chose that, Annika?
Kind of going off what Cassie said, I think comparing yourself to other people is definitely a thing that we noticed. And I think it is also important that we see that kids are very good at hiding things and you don't know what a person is going through. So it's always important to make sure that they have those resources in mental health. And some of these grants did give us that opportunity to make sure that all students are being heard and the youth is supported and they know that like they're not alone and they can be helped. They can see people that are willing to help them out of that difficult situation.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else from our youth panel? Yeah.
I think that social media definitely does contribute to the comparison culture because a lot of these social media influencers have a big effect on teens and how they view themselves, and that can definitely contribute to their mental health.
It's a great point. Vidya, anything?
I mean, just a lot of off of what Cassie said, just a lot of comparison culture. And most of it does come from academics because I think even before this, we were having a conversation between the amount of AP classes somebody's taking over something else and how smart does that make you. But I think there are different definitions of being smart and everybody's smart in their own way. And teens don't really realize that because we're all pushed into this kind of academic pressure where everybody's trying to be seen as smart by taking specific classes or by showing that they can do something.
It's a great answer. Commissioner Teal, you want to take us to the next segment?
I sure do. Guys, one of the reasons why the commissioners wanted to get the input of the Youth Commission is we're very concerned about following trends. Okay, making sure that we're not just thinking about it the way that we remembered our high school years. So I'd like to take a few minutes and go down the line and ask you guys to share what trends were you seeing, not just in the list of grants that you reviewed, but in your own thoughts. What trends were you following? We had issues of sustainability, affordability, the ability to raise funds. There were vehicle requests. And, Cassie talked about the herd mentality among youth sometimes. Well, was that leading to any trends? And Vidya, I wonder if we can start with you and have you talk about any trends that you saw and that you wanted to bring out in your decision making.
Of course. Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I want to talk about sustainability, and I think that was a big topic that we were talking about. And a lot of sustainability issues came from vehicles and about how vehicles aren't just a one-time expense. Like we could give them the grants, but vehicles also require insurance and they require maintenance. And we just believe that it wasn't the best way to spend our funding. So I think sustainability was definitely a top priority for that very particular reason, was about, is this going to be a one-time investment? And then we also talked about affordability. Some grants were some organizations were asking for money that would take up around 1/4 of the funding that we have received. So that played a big factor into deciding whether or not we want to provide those funds.
Awesome. So Preston, I'm going to same question to you, but before we do that, if you're joining us on the phone, please press *3 in order to ask a question on the issue of trends and what you might be seeing that you'd like to ask the panel. Preston, same question to you. What trends were you seeing?
So trends that we saw were some were like had the ability to fundraise on their own. For example, Aspen View Academy, they want to have a pickleball program for their PE classes, but they asked for $510.91, and that could be easily fundraised on their own.
Okay, very good. Annika, what are your thoughts on trends that you were seeing and affected your decision making?
Something that I personally looked at, and also I think all of the kids here did, was that how are these grants, like, are they going to profit the youth in the future? Like, is it going to grow on itself, or is it going to show progress in the future? And I think we had to look kind of beyond what they were just putting right there in their description, is how is it going to look maybe 5 years from now if we do give them this money? And so I think it definitely mattered for us to see not only what it was about, but what it could look like if we did invest in it.
Okay, so kind of hearkening to what Commissioner Thomas talked about of trying to have an effect, not just for now, but going into the future.
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool. Cassie, what are your thoughts on trends that you were seeing, trends that you wanted to follow in your decision making?
Something we considered was representation, how well these organizations that we were choosing were going to represent students who may not have as much of a voice in schools and in communities. So, for example, one of our priorities was STEM and education. STEM is sometimes not as represented in schools as, say, athletics or arts. Well, arts program actually needs help. Sorry. But STEM, especially for women in STEM is something that's highly promoted nowadays because women have historically been, shunned away from programs in STEM. So we looked at how well organizations would represent students who haven't had a voice in certain areas. For example, also in mental health tends to disproportionately affect students who maybe based on race. Minorities are sometimes more affected by mental struggles than other people. And also young teenage girls especially their mental health is definitely damaged by things like social media, comparison, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Well, next I want to go to Marcia. Now, Marcia, we have you here at the county and you're monitoring these youth issues. What do you do? What's your perspective in terms of the trends that you saw? And then tell us about your experience in the feedback you were receiving from the youth on the panel and also on the bigger commission.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner. First of all, I just want to say that I am so impressed with the youth that are with us this evening. They are so well spoken and articulate, and it is a joy and a privilege to be able to just be a part of the bringing them together. It is just always amazing, their voice. And one of the things that we've seen as a bubbling need is that youth voice. Those who might remember Braden from last year, who was one of our first student advisory youth initiative advisory board members, his passion was youth voice. And so I think so eloquently said it. We're not in our teens. And so it's great to be able to have the kids here to tell us what is going on. As I mentioned, they were amazing in that we went through, each youth told us their feelings about the grants, and we asked them to discuss them, which they did. They had done their due diligence, which was also very impressive, and they knew what they had some questions, but they were also very, I think, determined in their answers. And so the trends started bubbling up, and I started jotting them down. So it was incredible to see that so much of their thought process was similar. The mental health is definitely something that they speak about and we hear about. And we have really, even pre-COVID, we heard about it. Then we heard what COVID had brought to us, and mental health is still very much part of their world. And so I think, as Commissioner Layden said, this year's Youth Congress will be solely looking at mental health, and the response we're getting is great. We're going to want to give them tools, and then we want that to be something that is very regular in their conversation about, well, if you're feeling anxious about something, this is what I learned about anxiety. So let's do those kind of things. Their thought process was like, I was very much impressed with how well thought out they were with each grant, looking at those, serving all youth in Douglas County, and their trends as they've spoken about. And they're also a tough crowd. I will say that.
No, stop.
Yes.
The youth of Douglas County, a tough crowd?
They're a tough crowd. Yeah, they were. They did not have to ask a lot of questions because they had done their research. So they were pretty much so articulate. As they mentioned about the schools, I don't think we had many school grant requests, but we did have some. And they mentioned they can fundraise. They're old hats at that. Is basically, I think, what they said.
Well, thanks so much, Marcia, and we really appreciate all your work. And I'm sure the youth present here and who benefit from your mentorship with the Youth Commission very much appreciate it as well. You know, Commissioner Layden, we do want to get to Representative Bradley. She's got something very special for us. Would you like to take us into the next segment, sir?
Absolutely, and we are very honored to have her with us. Before we get there, I know we want to remind everyone listening in and our public that we serve that we're going to take all of this into consideration while making the decision. And I just want to ask my colleagues, is there anything that you wanted to comment about in terms of decision making or next steps?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I mean, I think when we were first presented with these funds, obviously, like I said, it was very loose. And so for me, I was interested in input. I was interested in hearing from the public. And it's you, Commissioner Layden, who suggested, hey, let's hear from the Youth Commission as well. And I thought that was great. Obviously, these are funds meant for youth activities. We could try to remote control it. I'm 55. We're all well out of our high school years. But I really thought that was a great step to take it to the Youth Commission. What I'd like to do now is I'm really looking to the public who may be listening, who may be joining us, maybe after the live presentation and watching it on our YouTube channel. Please comment. Please share your thoughts as well, because listen, this is your money. Yes, I am a resident of Castle Rock. I did not pay into this fund for the last 20 years. But for those of you in Highlands Ranch, like you, Kelly, for those of you who are in Roxborough, who are in the unincorporated areas around Lone Tree and Parker, please give us feedback. We would love to hear it because, quite frankly, Commissioner, I'm interested in getting these awards made, getting this money put to getting this money put to use for our youth here in the county before Thanksgiving. And I'd like us to be able to make decisions here in October and hand out checks before Thanksgiving and the holidays. Those are my thoughts for next steps.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Teal, and I'll refuse to take any credit you give me, no matter what good idea I may have. I need another vote to get that done, and I always appreciate your support and your support of youth in Douglas County. Commissioner Thomas, any comments about your decision making?
Yes, thank you. I went through all of them very carefully, and I do feel, since Parker and Lone Tree got their funds and spent them, that I'm not sure it's right for us to fund programs in Parker because they chose to spend their funds another way. So I would like to see the money spent in places like Kelly said, Highlands Ranch, Roxborough, that did not get their own funding so that they have access to that funding. I think that's a fair way to look at that. And I would like to really look at C-Corps Cares. C-Corps really provides a lot of support to youth in need. They have a program where they pack bags over the weekend so kids can bring a bag of food home to feed their whole family. And I don't think that they were recommended funding, but I would really like to look at helping C-Corps Cares because they do help a lot of youth with food insecurity. But I really appreciate and I really agreed and liked a lot of the feedback that we got from the youth choices, and they will carry a lot of weight as far as my vote goes going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. You know, these two have a very important role because this is the final stop, the Board of County Commissioners. But I'll just weigh in as well, and it's a nice segue in terms of my conversation with Representative Bradley. But yes, for me, I have a lot of thoughts around what I think is important for youth. I have 3 kids of my own, but I was really interested in hearing from our Youth Commission. And what we heard loud and clear is that their number one priority is mental health. Now, we did not receive as many mental health applications as would be reflected in the needs and desires of our youth. So I was really blessed to have a great conversation with Representative Brandy Bradley, who has a tremendous heart for young people. And she introduced me to a program that she had heard about in her travels. And I'd love to pass the microphone off to Representative Bradley to maybe share a little bit about her story and introduce this video. Representative?
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here. Mental health, especially in youth, is a big something that goes after my heart pretty well. I just want to give a couple of statistics for the people listening. When I go to the Capitol and speak at the Well, a lot of people think that Douglas County is perfect. I want to remind our viewing audience that we have almost 200 kids that are homeless in Douglas County. They're living displaced or on couches. We have Douglas County is in the top 10 Colorado counties for child abuse referrals. We have 3,200 referrals to child welfare. 49% of those are neglect, 15% physical abuse, 8% sexual abuse, and then it goes on and on. Substance abuse, domestic violence, parent-youth conflict. These kids are taking this to school. So how do we help these kids? How do we help herd mentality? I was a cheerleader. I was physically abused most of my life and contemplated suicide for the first time when I was 14 years old. So how do we help that? I looked like I had it all together. I was a cheerleader. I was, parts of all these groups, and people wanted to be me, and I was dying inside. So how do we stop this herd mentality? How do we have children see other children for where they are in this space? And how do we help protect the mental health? September Suicide Prevention Month. So I'm excited to be here because of that. I think that we all know on this panel that Douglas County is one of the highest in suicides for 10 to 17-year-olds. That's a problem for me as well. I think one death is way too many. I would like for kids to not feel isolated. I think COVID made the isolation worse, and we're trying to kind of pull out of that. So when I was thinking about this, I volunteered for an organization years ago called Challenge Day, and it was being held at Thomas Jefferson, which is a lower income school. And I thought, wow, if this is so amazing here, how do kids in Douglas County feel when they're homeless and pull up to a parking lot with BMWs and Range Rovers and things like that? How do we get those kids to see each other in a different light? And so I volunteered for Challenge Day 3 different years in a row, and it was one of the most profound, amazing experiences I've ever been a part of. The mental health of children, they have such great follow through that the school looked different and felt different. It was lighter. Kids were loving on each other. Kids that didn't even have backgrounds or shared the same things wanted to be in the same room with each other. I saw children apologize for bullying. It was just an amazing experience. I'm not going to do it justice, but I want to tell you a little bit about it before we start the video. So Challenge Day has been serving for 35 years. This is not a new program. It served over 2,700 schools in the US, Canada, Europe, Asia, and Africa. It's served over 1.5 million students and adults, and it's the longest running, most successful school program in the world. And they made it very clear, and this is one thing that I really love. They said it's not just an anti-bullying workshop, but about finding out who people are, not just who we think they are. And that's the herd mentality, right? Find out who they are. Is this your classmate that struggles with food every weekend? Is this your classmate who makes straight A's, but it's still not good enough for his parents? We need to stop siloing children and have them walk in each other's shoes. And I really, honestly, 7 years ago when I wanted to bring this, I never thought I was going to be in legislation. I thought, how can I bring this to Douglas County? And I just feel very strongly about this program. And I'm just so excited for you guys to watch this video and to see what I'm talking about. So thank you.
Representative, thank you for that. And as you were talking, I saw the faces of each of our teen representatives just light up. So I hope that's a good indicator for what we're doing here. And you know, candidly, we had this coffee together and, you know, I said, you know, you don't always have to battle with 100 people, you know, downtown in Denver. You can come to Douglas County and we don't wait to do great. So with that, let me, that video I think is ready to go. So I'll turn it to Roger.
You bet. We are going to run the video and I'm going to do a quick countdown for the production team. Let's start that video in 3, 2, 1.
What's your story? What's it really like to be you? Past the image, behind the mask, beneath your waterline. What feelings do you blow into your balloon every day that no one knows about? What's it really like to be you? Maybe if we really knew you, we would know that you live in a place called home, but some days it doesn't feel like home when you get there. Some days there's so much yelling, so much fighting, or worse, there's just silence. When you wake up in the morning and it's time to come to school, do you wake up with excitement or do you wake up with anxiety? A place where people may judge me before they get to know me. What's it really like to be you?
Any of you ever been called a bad kid? Any of you ever felt totally misunderstood by someone who called you a bad kid? There's actually no such thing as a bad kid. Every one of you in here was born absolutely perfect, like a little baby, right? With that big smile and those bright eyes. But then as we get older, life starts happening to us. And as it does, we don't always know what to do. And when we don't know how to express our feelings in a healthy, positive way, sometimes we hurt ourselves and we hurt the people around us when we're all just holding up a big invisible sign that says, I don't know how to say this, but please help me.
Society has evolved so much over the last few decades. Schools and teachers have known for a long time that there needs to be a major shift in our educational system in order to keep up with our changing world. We've seen Challenge Day go into every kind of setting you can imagine. Different demographics, different age groups, different parts of the world. And regardless of where we go, the outcome is the same. It simply works. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings who want to be fully seen, respected, and understood.
It'll change your life, you'll watch it change kids' lives, and it's just a really, really special, amazing experience. I've talked to people in the community who have said that their kids have talked about Challenge Day for a week straight, couldn't stop talking about it. That's how much they loved it, that's how much of a difference it made.
Real change and connection is possible.
I highly recommend Challenge Day to any school who wants their students to get a deeper understanding of who they are.
Because that's what freedom is.
We truly believe that social and emotional learning is the future of education.
to consider this. The challenge is challenge day did not apply. But the nice thing is that this Board of County Commissioners has a lot of discretion to talk about these funds. So thank you for that. Roger, I know we're going to an online poll and then a wrap up, right?
We are. We've got a polling question tonight. Thank you, Commissioner. It is easy to participate. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. And if you're participating online, just click your response. Here is the question. Of our students' priorities, which one resonates with you the most? Press 1 for mental health, 2 for education STEM, 3 for prevention and mentoring, 4 for special needs, 5 for arts, recreation, and sports, 6 for vehicles and buildings, and 6 for agriculture. Let me repeat that real quick. Which priority resonates with you most? 1, mental health, 2, education STEM, 3, prevention, mentoring, 4, special needs, 5, arts, recreation, and sports, 6, vehicles, buildings, and 7, agriculture. Go ahead and vote now for your priority. And while you're doing that, I'm going to hand it back to Commissioner Layden for some closing remarks. Commissioner.
Great. Well, I've already said a lot, so I want to make sure my colleagues have an opportunity to ring in as well. I'll just reserve my comments to say thank you to these amazing students. One thing I don't miss is homework. I don't have homework anymore, but these guys probably do. It's a weeknight. So huge thanks to Annika, Cassie, Preston, and Vidya. Appreciate you being here with us. Commissioner Teal.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. You know, several years ago, when I was still on the Castle Rock Council, I attended a lecture at the National League of Cities, and the lecturer talked about emotional infrastructure. And, you know, so many times we focus on roads. We build roads. We're working on public health, building sewer systems, water systems, the hard battleship gray, boring infrastructure that we provide to create the safe society we have. And so many times we forget about the emotional infrastructure, the things that were being talked about tonight. What do we do to bring light, bring color, bring joy to our communities? And so I just like to really say thank you to our youth commissioners who helped us out this evening and are helping us, again, invest in that emotional infrastructure using these funds from the sale of the Denver Broncos and making use of these funds right here in Douglas County. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thanks, Commissioner Teal. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, I'd like to round this out by not only thanking the youth commissioners, but their parents. I think that when kids are successful, there's often a good correlation between parents who stand behind you and help you. They get you places, they support you. So if your parents are listening, I hope they hear this. If they aren't listening, you tell them that the commissioners thank them for raising great kids who helped us with this decision. And let me just add, when we talk about mental health has been a priority for county commissioners, I think going back till 2014. And since then, Douglas County has 9 community response teams, and 2 of those teams are dedicated to kids in schools, because we know that the sooner we get a student with mental health care, the better chances they have of fulfilling a productive life. And just this summer, the commissioners gave $1.5 million in grants for mental health support. Just one of those was $240,000 to the Happy Crew. And this is an organization that has a coffee shop available near the intersection of Highlands Ranch Parkway and Colorado Boulevard and University, so that kids have a place where they can go, talk to their friends, help each other, and get through the day. And I just want you all to know I appreciate you being here, and that mental health is a huge concern to us that we have been funding. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Good night, and God bless you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, commissioners. Here are the results of our online survey. We asked which of these student priorities resonate with you most. The top 4 answers were mental health, 53%. Prevention and mentoring, 16%, special needs, 11%, and education STEM, 10%. On behalf of Douglas County, we thank you for joining us this evening. If we didn't get to your question tonight, we invite you to submit any questions you may have about this or other topics to douglas.co.us/Citizen Connect. We hope you will join us again for our 76th Town Hall in a few weeks, and we wish you a good night.